Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Ray Niles, and you've stumbled into, I don't know, the 13th, 14th, or 15th episode of Red Barn Samplers. I know it's been a very, very long time since I've been on FlossTube. My life has kind of gotten crazy. If you watched a little bit of the last episodes I published over the summer, you'll know that I took on the role of superintendent in our local community. You know, sometimes the path that you find yourself on is not the path that you plan to be on, but it's the path that was definitely intended for you. So I've been serving as superintendent for our school district since July, loving every minute of it. I'm so grateful for the staff that I have and the students that I get to serve every day. So that means that my time on YouTube has been a little bit shorter than I would have liked. But I'm super excited to be with you today because I want to share with you some really exciting news, not only about Market, but also about an article that came out in Just Cross Stitch magazine. So I have a recent article that came out in Just Cross Stitch magazine, and it focuses on a sampler that I created. And so this sampler that I made for Just Cross Stitch magazine, the chart is in the magazine. It's a very sweet little chart. The colors come off of an original one that I own, and the design that I used really was something that came to me that I think all of you, once you read the story, will be able to relate to as well. So the chart's in the book, the story's in the book, and again, I just would encourage you, if you've not picked up a copy of this, treat yourself. There's lots of really great stories in here, lots of great patterns, and then it also gives you an idea of maybe something you might want to do for your friend as well. I want to jump right into a couple floss tubes I've been watching. Of course, we all watch Brenda and Laura, right? And we love that. And we're probably all watching Nicola Parkman on Hands Across the Sea. But I recently stumbled across Antique Needleworker, which I really am enjoying that, as well as The Stitching Wanderer. Both of those have been very enlightening for me. And then also I've enjoyed watching some of the other ones that kind of pop up along the side. So if you've not taken the time to see what's popping up along the side when you're looking at your floss tubes, I would encourage you to do so. There's some on there that you're just going to go, wow, I never knew that that was out there. Another favorite of mine is Mama Loves You GB from across the pond. So I had the distinct pleasure of meeting Michelle last fall, and it was so fun to be able to connect with her because we found that we had some things in common, one of which was that both of our fathers were auctioneers, and that was really kind of fun to be able to make that connection with her. So anyway, just if you're not watching several other floss tubes, I would encourage you to do so. There's a lot of great content out there. So I want to jump right into, I have 7 new market releases for Nashville Market, and I'm very excited about those 7 releases because they've been a long time coming. Some of them were projects I had done last year, and then now they're being released. So you'll notice I've got several here on the table, and you'll notice I have 2 up above, and I'm going to talk specifically about each one of those and the stories behind them. I want to start off with this little one called Rachel Seller. And Rachel Seller 1882 is just a very sweet, sweet little sampler. Let me grab that. Now, what I really appreciate about Rachel Seller is it's simple. It's very simple. It's not very big, and if you've not done a sampler before, this might be something that you want to consider doing. I'll give you a little bit of background about this little gal. Let me scoot that up there so you can see it. Believe it or not, I kind of think that maybe Rachel stitched this as part of a Sunday school lesson. And I'll tell you why. She was born in 1870 in Yorkshire, United Kingdom, to Thomas Seller and Lucy Seller. She was the 4th child of 9. And the 1881 census lists her father Thomas as a tailor and draper and specifically identifies him as a local Methodist preacher. The other thing that I think is interesting is that her older brother John William followed in her father's footsteps and became a preacher. And the second oldest son, his first name was Reverend. Again, I think that that's very unusual as well, to be able to have that connection to her church, to her faith. And again, if you're looking for a little sampler maybe to hang on your wall that's not very big, I've put it in a chunky frame that will actually stand up. The next one I want to share with you is one that I had done. Let me grab this back here. The next sampler I want to share with you is one that I had done specifically for an event that was the Great British Sampler Weekend. It was sponsored by Nicola Parkman. I was invited to speak at her event, and I took a sampler that I had owned from 1796 and I adapted it. So it's not a specific reproduction in the sense that all of the colors, all of the stitches match precisely. What it is a snippet. An idea that I took using the elements of that sampler and combining it into one of a different sampler. The thing I want to call out on here is you'll notice there's some satin stitches, and believe it or not, those satin stitches were completed using DMC satin, which honestly I had never stitched with before. I found it much easier to use and manipulate than Cunningham. And for me specifically, the colors were exactly what I was needing. So again, this is Sophia Railton's 1796, and it is a sampler snippet. And again, the thing I like about this is that it specifically took elements of her sampler to create a different sampler. I don't know that I will be producing that sampler at any time soon, but if you are interested, here's what the cover of the chart looks like. And the great story about this is this little girl was a little bit lazy. If you recall, last spring, I did a floss tube on the original sampler, and that original sampler talked about how she had done the family registry, and instead of writing Sarah Sophia Railton for her name, she even did Sarah Sophia Ditto. And then as she listed her siblings, she wrote the first word of Railton for their last name, and then it was ditto, ditto, ditto. So a girl after my own heart, working smarter, not harder. Again, if the folks that attended the Great British Sampler Weekend, they've seen several of them on social media. So if you'd like to be able to create your own, I would encourage you to grab this one as well. The next one I want to share with you is M. Cunningham. And I love this little sampler because I love cows. Now, when I first acquired M. Cunningham, I thought, oh gosh, look at all of those initials. I'll easily be able to find out who this person really was. Well, I have searched and searched and searched, and I cannot find who this person is. I've looked on several of the ancestry sites. There are so many families from that time period with the last name of Cunningham with very similar initials that it is really difficult to tell. The one clue I do have is, and I'm making an assumption here, this set of MC is in black, which would lead me to believe that perhaps that individual had passed. I don't know why, but my gut says that maybe this was stitched by a boy. I'm not really sure. We've got a quilt right here, quilt pattern. We have a milk pitcher right here, but I love this cow. In fact, I love this cow so much that I have taken the cow and I put together several little pin keeps. And thanks to Faye Rigsby, she was the finisher on these for me. But I've got it in the purple, the blue, and the orange. And I had somebody ask me, why'd you put 1871 at the bottom? Well, that was the year of the sampler. So this is purely my imagination, nothing from the sampler that I actually reproduced. I just included that in the chart because, again, I thought they were very clever, the cows. So if you're a cow person or you just want one with an animal to hang on your sampler wall, M. Cunningham, 1871. Now, the next sampler I want to share with you, I think is pretty funny, and funny in an ironic sort of way. When I got this sampler, it made me chuckle. And it made me chuckle not so much because of the design, but because of the name on it. And I have not yet reached out to this individual. I should do that. I'm hoping to see her at market. But this is Elizabeth Matthews, 1855. And for those of you that have been around the stitching world for a while, you know Liz Matthews, right? And I just got the biggest chuckle when I acquired this because I thought, oh my gosh, how funny is that this sampler bears the name of somebody I respect a great deal in the needlework world. So Elizabeth Matthews, 1855. And I will tell you that when I charted this one, it's done on Granny Slip from XJude Design. When I charted this one, I chose to use anchor. Sometimes I think that people forget that anchor is really an option out there. And so I did the whole thing in anchor. There are conversions in the chart for DMC, but I thought it would be fun to do it in anchor. So this gal's done in anchor. And let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth Matthews. So again, I thought, you know, Elizabeth Matthews, that can't be that much of a popular name. I should be able to find who that is. Ironically enough, there are several Elizabeth Matthews, and it's about as common as the proverbial John Smith is today. There is a whimsical appeal to her sampler and the motifs and the colors that she chose. Each of these, I think, specifically could even be their own type of motif if you wanted to make a little small or a pin keep or whatever. I will tell you that I acquired it from a woman in Oklahoma. It's possible it was stitched in the Midwest, although I do still believe it was probably from over across the Atlantic, probably in the United Kingdom somewhere, maybe in England. But I'm really not sure. I just know I love her colors, and I love that she chose to be so bright in the colors that she picked. So again, that is Elizabeth Matthews. Now this next one I'm going to show you, this one was, again, another favorite of mine for several reasons. The first reason being that I loved her colors. And if you are a bright jewel tone person like I am, I love to wear pink, I love to wear reds, bright colors that bring a lot of vibrancy and life into the world. You may like Louisa Marsh. Louisa Marsh 1834 is very, very, very whimsical. So a couple things I want to call out to you. You'll notice the word Louisa has a backwards S. The word Marsh has a backwards S. So that tells me at least she was consistent. Up here, you'll notice, though, that the S is not backwards. So maybe she knew how to write her name and the rest of this was purely copied. I don't know. I also can tell from the design, she stitched this middle part first and then she added her words. And the reason I know that is she says her work, aged 10, 1834. She did not count her spaces well enough to know that her words weren't going to fit in the way that she had them. Again, simple cross stitch. The only thing that's different, she did do some satin stitch down here on the wings. But you could easily substitute those if you were not comfortable doing that. But I absolutely love this sampler. I think the colors are just delightful. And the other thing I learned about this little girl is that she was born in the same county that Enoch Woods and the Spode family were from. And if you know anything about English china or fancy dishes, you'll recognize those names, Enoch Woods, and you'll recognize Spode. So I kind of make the argument that she was around color her whole life, and that color and the vibrancy that color brings to her life were important to her. And so that is why she chose the colors that she chose. So again, I love this little gal. I think she's very sweet. She's a very quick stitch. It would not take very long to complete her at all. Now let me tell you a little bit more about Louisa Marsh. A couple things that I've noticed is that I had shared earlier last spring that I was lucky enough to acquire a collection from a woman who had since passed away. This happens to be one of those pieces from that collection. Louisa was born in Staffordshire. She was the youngest of 10 children. My guess is she had the rule of the roost. She was able to probably run around and do what she wanted to do. And that they show that her father was a potter. Well, that would make sense, right? If he lives in a county where they're making fancy china, that's probably where he was able to find a job. And then more importantly, the idea of being a potter, creating things with your hands, bringing in color, that would have been something that would have surrounded her entire life. You'll also notice as you go through and read this that when she was 24 years old, she married a man named Elisha Wood. Again, I don't know if there's a connection there to Enoch Wood. I don't know. They had 3 children. Their first child was named Mary Tenessa. She was born in 1850. She died in 1913. Their second child, a boy named George Reed, was born in 1854. He died in 1893. And 2 years later, Elisha passed away right after her son was born. So again, some sadness in her story, but just a lot of great examples of how color can bring joy to your life. So Louisa Marsh, 1834. Now I've got 2 more I want to show you. They're both hanging right up there. So let me grab the first one. Now this one here I want to share with you. This is Mary Ann Tyler, age 10, 1847. And a couple things I want to point out to you about this crazy, crazy sampler is that I don't believe this was the first time this ground cloth was used for the sampler. In fact, I'm fairly confident it wasn't. The reason I know that is there are remnants of another sampler that are on top of the sampler that I acquired. So first and foremost, you have a little blue background ball with a yellow cross, and it says AR. I'm inclined to think that that was probably part of the word Mary or where she's from or something like that. You'll also notice a fragment line here that goes all the way across in a color that's not present anywhere else on the sampler. And then you'll notice that there are these shadowy, wispy looking kind of flowers. You've got one there. You've also got two pieces here that don't really fit into anything. And also you've kind of got some leftover stuff down here. Now, when I charted this, I chose to include all those crazy things in there because I thought it gave character to the sampler. I also loved her choice of color. You'll notice a theme in all of my samplers. I like color. I like the world to be a happy place. And so to me, bringing color into that is really important. I do like Mary Ann Tyler. I so wanted to call her Mary Tyler Moore, but only if you're of a certain age is that even funny. But it's Mary Ann Tyler, 1847, and she was 10 years old. So let me tell you a little bit about Mary Ann Tyler. Mary Ann Tyler had to have been a happy child. Her choice of vibrant, bright colors and the verse she chose to stitch, which suggests that she shared a whimsical outlook on life. Flowers in a garden, the joy of heaven, coupled with a beautiful petite rosebud border, provide a glimpse into the child's 10-year-old heart. We can tell a lot about Mary Ann Tyler from the stitch work she left behind. However, without additional details, it's really difficult for me to know exactly where Mary Ann lived or who the real Mary Ann Tyler was. I go on to explain some things in the write-up that are part of the sampler, calling out some of those pieces that were left over. The other thing I did was I searched for the person who wrote the phrase. And the phrase on the sampler is, "In thy garden, Lord below, water me that I may grow. And when all thy grace is given, then transplant me into heaven." And I love that. I love that sentiment. But let me tell you a little bit about the phrase. William Hammond was a Protestant hymnist. He was born in 1719 in Sussex, England, and he was educated at the St. John's College in Cambridge. He initially joined the Calvinist Methodists and wrote this hymn that these words came from. And it's possible that perhaps Mary Ann went to church and sang from a hymnal that actually had these words in it. It's possible that maybe she had a parent or a grandparent that sang this to her, but clearly the words resonated with her and it became something she wanted to put on her sampler. So again, I love the sentiment. I love the story. I just love that she chose to also recycle something. You know, she used ground cloth that had already been used once and made something even more beautiful out of it the second time. So Mary Ann Tyler, 1847. The last sampler I want to share with you is what I'm calling kind of my cornerstone piece for market. This is Yuri Fel, 1856. And there are some really beautiful things about this sampler. Number one, Yuri chose a cherry border, which I think is absolutely stunning. I don't know of any sampler that I've ever seen that has a cherry border. I just absolutely love this. I also love that she chose two different phrases. The first one, "I gaze upon the downy bird, in autumn seeks its southern nest, and when the song no more is heard, I deem there is a land of," what should be the word rest, and it's just R-E ... She ran out of space. Down below, she says, "How doth the little busy bee improve its shining hour, and gather honey all the day from every opening flower." Again, choosing those phrases of those verses kind of got me thinking about why would she have picked that? Like what is it in her background that would draw her to choose those to put on her sampler? So I began digging for Yuri. She was the fifth child of 15 children, and she was the sixth generation to live in the United States. So her family had been here for a very long time by 1856. And there's quite a history in Bucks County of the Fel family. In fact, so much so that one of Yuri's original samplers that she stitched when she was about 30 years old appear in a book. And it's a book that was a project to look back at folk art across the United States. Why they picked her sampler, I'm not really sure, but when I look at her sampler in the book and this sampler, there are similar elements. She used very similar motifs. The other thing I found out about the family is that they were Quaker. And again, I think of Quaker's samplers maybe not being as colorful. She does choose muted colors, but there's a lot of color in this. And she didn't marry till she was almost 45 years old. So, you know, maybe she worked with her nieces, maybe she worked with the neighbor kids, I don't know. If you read the Fel family history from Bucks County, you'll notice that they all kind of live together in a clan type homestead. Lots of homes, lots of cousins, lots of little kids running around. So I envisioned that Yuri was probably a favorite aunt, someone that others loved to be around, someone that others really enjoyed being with. So this is my anchor piece, my cornerstone piece for market. She's a big gal, but I will tell you, I absolutely love this. And hanging in my home, it's beautiful. The other thing is there's a little bit of over one on it. Obviously the words are over one, and you can't tell this, but I chose to do those as tent stitches. I did not cross those X's because I didn't have time, and honestly nobody can tell, right? The other thing I'll call out is there is rice stitch on here, and the rice stitch is on the big alphabet down below. And then there's also some Algerian eyelet stitches, all of which could be substituted for just regular cross stitch. And if you didn't want to include all of the over one, you wouldn't have to. But again, just a lovely piece. It's all stitched in DMC. There is a conversion for a Vera Soie on it. All of my charts carry at least DMC and something else. But again, I love this. Like I said, she's a big gal. I think she's 296 by 295. But again, if you are looking for just a really knockout piece to hang in your home, I would encourage you to think about this. And if you didn't want to stitch the whole thing, you could always do the border and then choose a couple of the elements. I had actually considered doing the cherry border and then putting the, I like this bird, I like this bird over here better than the other bird because I like the colors. But I had even thought about doing that as a little pin keep with the cherries around it. So again, just, I also love the name Yuri. There's some confusion in the research that I looked at. Was she named after a great-great-great-grandmother whose real name was Eureka? And maybe she was, I don't know. But I do love her name, Uree C. Fel, 1856. So these are the samplers I have for market. I want to thank the shops that are already advertising for me pre-orders. If you're so inclined and you'd like to order ahead of time, please do so. All of my charts are exclusive only to shops until the beginning of April. So if you want to get started, I would say reach out to your local needlework shop, order through them, and they'll have them for you as soon as they return to market. I also want to thank you for all of the words of encouragement and all of the messages that I have received over the last year, specifically the last 6 months as I've begun my journey as a superintendent of schools. I do think it's an honor and a privilege to be able to serve our students and to be able to serve our families and our communities. And like I said, while it wasn't the path that I thought I would be on, it is exactly where I need to be for right now. So I will continue to design as much as I possibly can. I want to call out, I'm going to be the designer at 2 events. I will be at Quilter Station in April, and I'm very, very excited about that. For one thing, it's drivable, so that's a bonus. But for another thing, it's a bunch of Midwest folks typically, and their faces that are very familiar to me. So I'm really looking forward to that and grateful that Rita has given me the opportunity to be one of her designers. And then I'm also going to be in Iowa the end of June in a small retreat. There's about 50 women up in kind of the northeast corner of Iowa. And again, I'm looking forward to that as well. So thank you for joining me this morning. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to hearing from you. If you've not subscribed to my channel, please do so. And please feel free to spread the word and share the good news with others about what I have coming out at market. And with that, may your floss never twist. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.